Greetings to all. This is Abhibhav from Internationalism, and being the Chief Executive Officer of Internationalism, I welcome you all for the Indian Conference on Artificial Intelligence and Law. So, we are here for another session, and in this session, we will be actually having a track on different papers related to artificial intelligence and international relations. So, I'm representing as the program chair for this session. We have some amazing papers and recommendation reports from our research interns as well as external participants. So we welcome the participants as well. We are now live on YouTube, and I would people cooperating with Aditi Sharma, convener for IndoCon, and also one of the handlers of the tracks. So Aditi, please introduce the track participants who are here with us. Thank you.
All right, so welcome everybody. Today we'll be having 3 track presentations. The first of which will be by Ms. Dyuti Pandya, and the topic of her track presentation would be the age of artificial intelligence and the new global order. Then the second presentations would be by Ms. Ankita Malik, and she'll be talking on artificial intelligence and cyber security policy recommendations. And the third track presentation would be by myself. I'm Aditi Sharma, and the topic of my presentation would be the digital diplomacy and international cyber security. So I would now like Dyuti Pandya to start with her presentation.
Yeah, hi. I had mentioned that I won't be able to switch on my camera because my laptop's camera doesn't work. So I hope that is okay. Anyways, thanks Aditi for that introduction, and I would like to begin my presentation. So before I begin, I would just like to start off with, do we still have meaningful human control over AI processes, or it's just a meaningful human control an illusion? So now, as you know that my paper's title is The Age of AI and the New Global Order, we all know that the entire beginning of human history and politics has created a fundamental change. The existence has been possible only through the human actions and the interactions between various networks and organizations. So now, when you have the introduction of technology into society, it gives rise to the artificial intelligence and its advancement. So the emergence of this intelligent neural networks holds out a new prospect for a fundamental change. And how this fundamental change would lead into a new global order is something that I had been focusing on. Now, before starting, we should know that these applications were built on a theoretical base that was established by the MIT during the 1970s. And how would these applications expand in the near future? They had provided 3 models. The first model is that there has been extensive applications of its rule in the expert systems and the simulations. The second was many models emphasize the role of historical precedent in the international relations decision making. Now, I would want to focus on this particular point. Why? Because I do not want to focus on an optimistic imagery that the AI is going to bring when it comes to a new global order, because we need to focus on the new form of authoritarianism, a digital one. Because as times have progressed, there have been various forms of this particular stand. They were namely the era of fascism in the 1920s, the communist rule in the China in the 1950s, the surge of the liberal democratic regime in America, the Russia's hybrid regime of that of democracy. So now what we would witness in the 21st century would be a myriad of all the digital variants that would be emerging from within. Now, I would want to quote a AI theorist, Eliezer Yudkowsky, who said, anything that could give rise to smarter than human intelligence in the form of AI, brain-computer interfaces, or neuroscience-based human intelligence enhancements wins down beyond contest as doing the most placement that would change the whole world. Nothing would actually even be in its same league. So now the advancement of global order has been disrupted, as I mentioned above. This has actually managed to sever the links between the ethical and the moral values. So, moving on to the wave after the information revolution that created a new global order, we are now creating a new system to coexist within the upcoming technological surges. This surge is said to be like, say, raging within and creating a dialogue between the powers that each nation would likely hold. So, this would largely depend on the technological advancement each country goes within. The advent of introducing AI in the society will create a new movement. So, the revolutionary upbringing with the big data has now paved its way from the mere science fiction books that we all know about. So, looking forth at, say, the political uprisings, we are now experiencing a digital uprising. So, the algorithmic diplomacy that will be harnessed efficiently will be beneficial in enforcing a new flow of dialogues between the countries. So this would be widely useful in establishing, say, the narratives between nations to avoid any sort of miscalculations that would otherwise deter the relations, something that which we all are witnessing in today's times. So another usage of AI in this particular domain would be the sensor-based technologies and the machine learning systems in the government enforcements, would, which would also likely help in curtailing the regulation. So this move was something that was suggested by Tim O'Reilly, who said framing and modifying the patterns of government functioning through fresh data on a regular basis will be a game changer. So, instituting, say, an interchange between the ways to govern the exploitation of scarce resources and congregating a free will for a individual to live in a new technocratic society is something that needs to be focused on. Now, moving on to the global market side, once we understand the position of where the domestic and the national interests in the global markets are going to lie, because COVID has also had an impact on the global economy. So, there would be a new change that we would be witnessing. So the AI would likely play a key player. The development program would be very important when it comes to objectifying the foreign policy decisions. So foreign ministers would likely have to retool their observation in developing the AI technologies in the markets. So basically, this needs to be done in order to establish a code of moral conduct and at the same time influence the stakeholders in different sectors. So, if you kind of focus on the philosophical aspect of studying global affairs, AI would influence the democracy and ethics viability of a particular nation. Ministries will need to embrace the AI driven tools for projects that would aid the development and produce the potential to keep the possibility of widening gaps between different nations. So now there are basically two fundamental ways where AI can be used in shaping the global order. So say the first is that AI would be able to distribute the physical frame of structures. The infrastructure building would be beneficial in reshaping the economic policies. The tech companies would say steer the operations and continue to promote the innovation, thereby creating a dialogue between different innovations. And this innovation would stir into the liberal democracies, because right now there has been a populist and a totalitarian giant that we are seeing. So maybe if AI comes into the market, there might be a surge of the liberal democracies in rise, which is why we need to focus on it more. Secondly, AI would be help in distributing the power. This would be utilized when there are a large number of global players, which is kind of obvious, right? So this would be an efficient way in distributing power between nations on a global scale. I did mention about, I don't want to focus on optimistic imagery fully, but at the same time, it's kind of like an yin and a yang story of having AI into the whole scenario. So there would be an efficient way of distributing power between nations on a global scale. So say if there is not a single potential player, then global players may rise and create a huge network of AI systems to maintain the relations between the nations. So this would go on to ensure social good, transparency, accountability, and fairness. So to develop possibilities and to understand the perils of how AI is going to implement a shift in the AI global order, we need to understand its foundations when it comes to international relations and foreign policy. So lastly, I would like to end it on a note. So this was said by David Cosset, who is currently the director of Academia Sinica Europea, who said AI, more than any other technology, would impact the future of mankind. It has to be wisely approached on a quest for human dignity and not blindly worshipped as the new master of diminished humanity. It has to be a catalyst for more global solidarity and not a tyrannical matrix of new political or geopolitical divisions. So we would see in the upcoming years what potential AI would likely bring and what a giant superpower or any established new order would come through. So that's my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. Now we will deal with the questions also by the audience, and also I will ask some questions to you. So the questions that I have are as follows. The first question is when you say that there's an amalgamation of political ideologies and data colonialism, which is actually the prima facie aspect of the theme, how would you like to deal with it? Because amalgamation of ideological obscuration and all these issues needs to have a clear understanding. I think in your thesis, which is your paper, you have tried to explore that, but it's still in that informative stage. So, how would you like to go about it? So, first question this, and then I'll ask rest of the questions.
Okay, so the reason that I tried focusing my paper on like just a surface-based knowledge was because not many people actually know the deep intricacies on how this is going to play out, right? So answering your question, like the amalgamation of AI and into the global order, this would I would like to begin by focusing on how global market needs to be arranged by introducing AI into it. So that would include the development program that would be needed by having the foreign policy leaders play the main objectives. So the foreign ministries would likely need to retool their observations in developing the AI technologies and markets. So the data that AI would likely garner would be important in stabilizing the regional inequality, migration, and trade issues. So this would help create a dialogue between the international players. It would further ensure the free flow of information for activities that will viably increase the potential of economic creation and production. So this would be like an interesting amalgamation when it comes to establishing a new global order. Secondly, it would be like, say, this approach would likely benefit the outcome because the process of, say, intellectual monitoring, future policies would be likely shaped. And this would also help in furthering and renewing the relations, right? Now, secondly, introducing AI in monitoring the security and autonomous weapon systems, because that also forms a major part of global order. So this would be like contributing to the economic ordeal of viable society. So this would influence the prospect of autonomous weapons. So the top priority, which I think for the governments and the diplomats, should be researching and overviewing the update on arms control and strategies. So this needs to be highlighted as well because AI arms race is something that might escalate if it is not given enough information. So major powers of the world would likely need to initiate common policies and work towards a collective interest, but not a singular interest. So I think that's how the amalgamation might likely play out.
I'll take the audience questions now.
Okay.
I think it will be a combination of two questions. So Aditya asks, and I'll amalgamate them so then you can answer. The first question is how AI helps in maintaining global order and national relations. I think you've already given a very good response to this. But
Yes.
still, if you can add, you can. But in both the questions, please complete in not more than 2 minutes because we need to go over the presentations and we need to save time. Therefore, we have the next panel coming and we need to. So it's humbly requested that a response is short, concise, and reasonable. The second question, which I really find amazing, in the sense that it's actually important about the practicalities, which is what could be the possible applications of uses of AI in international relations and diplomacy. So please respond. Thank you.
Okay, so answering I think the first question is something which I already answered, although I have like 3 pointers that maybe can be useful. So, policy making. In order to maintain a streamline of business, foreign ministries will actually need to evaluate the issues that will encircle, say, the intersection of AI and international relations. So, this would be the first role that AI might play in this particular field. Policymaking will be needed to assess the threats and opportunities that will be set as an institutional change. Secondly, it would be the public discretion. So discretion in public scenario means diplomacy. This means communication between governments, public civil society, media to take into the society and advance the values and interests. This would mean making everything transparent. So the field of diplomacy would be like something that the citizens would be awaiting for. So the sense of evaluating the basis of an order should will be based on the public choices and the democratic norms. The third is the two-pronged and many-sided assignation. So basically, this would help in formulating a dialogue that needs to be started between the allies to collectively strategize and understand what the role of AI would be when it comes to foreign policy responses. So this would be, say, how the international community did with the whole issue of cybersecurity. They highlighted it. And lastly, it would be useful in international and treaty organization action execution. So the entire assessment on how AI will coordinate for the policies in both formal and informal ways of multilateralism would be beneficial here. So when you want to talk about threats, you want to talk about consequences, you want to talk about economies, whatever. So that would depend on this. Then AI would be very helpful when it comes to converging the relations between foreign ministries to influence the stakeholders as well. So this a foundation would be created for a global civil society, and through this, the national interest would be developed in order to contribute to a new global order. So I think that's my answer.
Thank you so much. Let's get to the next presenter. Now we have Ankita Malik. She was one of the research interns at ICL, and she's actually one of the very bright students, I must say, very talented researcher. So Ankita, you have got the floor for 7 minutes. Your recommendations report, typically on AI and cybersecurity, was amazing because it had two aspects, which was the Indian consideration and obviously the international consideration first. So, in that scenario, India's national cybersecurity strategy has not come yet. The government is still working on it. It's still transforming. So, let's go ahead with this now. Ankita, you have 7 minutes, and we would be awaiting to hear you. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Abhivardhan. So before I begin, first of all, I apologize in advance if there's disturbance because I have some construction work going on. So I'm sorry about that. Secondly, if I exceed time, please do prompt me. So with that, I begin. So the topic that I have primarily been working on through this paper was artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. And in pursuance of that, I sought to give some policy recommendations that would in some way help fill the lacuna that existed right now in the interface between artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So firstly, what is cybersecurity? Why are we giving so much emphasis to cybersecurity? So the application and utilization of the internet has been constantly increasing, and we've seen that. And currently, there's no uniform set of laws that exist for its regulation. And on top of that, when we talk about uniform set of regulations, it just does not merely refer to cybersecurity in isolation, but also cybersecurity in consonance with its allied fields. So a policy question which arises here is primarily due to the lack of foundational expertise that is required to formulate these uniform norms that I'm talking about. So when we're looking at this, the first aspect that I would like to throw some light upon is cyber attacks and the costs of data breach, which is one of the primary aspects which come in. Now, even though cybersecurity has proven to be disastrous due to the phenomenally high costs of data breaches and cyber attacks per se, this has had a direct impact on the political as well as the human costs which have been incurred. Because there's a threat to the integrity and security of the state, and secondly, there's also the individuals who risk the violation of their rights due to breaches of this costs of these data breaches. The threats which have over a period of time, we've seen that these threats have become more sophisticated. So earlier we used to have concepts of like lone wolf attackers. Now we have more organized attackers who might have a different aim, but their idea of working is very similar. So right now, the governments are dealing with problems where they're trying to balance the sovereignty as well as integrity of the state, while simultaneously not infringing upon any of the rights, or not compromising rather any of the rights of the individuals. So this is considered to be a very Herculean task. Now, in order to combat this, it is essential to look at the capacities of the various nations which are dealing with such cyber attacks, because more or less it helps us gauge the deviation from traditional threats and how developing as well as developed nations are responding to it. Now, this is primarily because why we don't draw a distinction here is due to the fact that the key players here are all struggling with similar problems. The difference would lie in the resources or how they're tackled. So in order to understand the problems, we can take a comprehensive approach. With that, I'd like to bring your attention to the Costs of Data Breach Report 2020, which was brought forth by the Ponemon Institute and IBM. They basically indicate that in 2020, the data breaches have caused around $8.64 million to the US economy, and it took around 237 days for identification and containment of these cyber attacks. Similarly, India lost around 2 million, and it took around 313 days to contain these attacks. So overall, the costs of data breaches have been very high, especially taking into consideration the fact that we are all now working from home and everything's moved to a virtual platform. So COVID has, to a certain extent, played into the vulnerabilities that the cyberspace provides. Now, it has had certain practical solutions which were proposed by this report, such as risk management systems or security orchestration. But we would also now be looking at primarily artificial intelligence and cybersecurity. So even though the applications of artificial intelligence are wide-ranging, it can include diplomacy, surveillance, commerce, etc. But we also see that one of the primary areas of focus is cybersecurity, because that ultimately is the basis of protecting anything and everything on the cyberspace. So, moreover, the fact that plays into consideration here is that cybersecurity is not restricted by geographical constraints, right? So, it's really important that we look into that aspect as well. Talking about India, we see that India has been incorporating artificial intelligence into various arenas in order to boost development. And my paper primarily also talks about how the cybersecurity has been implemented as well as integrated within India, while keeping the parallel of what has been happening in the global forum. So India is considered to be the third largest third largest users of the internet in the world, and this is predicted to grow continuously. And right now, the government is also struggling with maintaining the pace of the development of technology versus the pace of development of the policies that come with it. So we see that India has taken a stance of the internet as a global commons, while we're still looking to regulate it to a certain extent with certain norms, which will come through mutually agreed terms. And we've also suggested that a committee for internet-related policies be set up, and the suggestion was put forth to the United Nations. So in the context of these problems, I will be moving forward with the recommendations that I thought could help solve these problems to a certain extent. So the first one would be to build upon positive foundations. Now, the gravity of such threats, that is the cyber attacks, is such that it amplifies the vulnerabilities that a nation already possesses. So a policy of cybersecurity for cybersecurity per se cannot be formulated merely on the basis of a traditional approach, because most of the threats that come with the cyberspace and their impact, these were not envisioned by the theorists who propounded the traditional security views. And again, I reiterate that the concepts of geographical limitations, as well as the internet or the cyberspace existing in isolation, does not exist. So in order to acknowledge the same, we need to understand that we need to broaden the scope of policy. However, when we say that broaden the scope of policy, just broadening it merely won't provide the foundation of making that policy or building upon that policy. So a plausible solution to this is a bottom-up approach wherein pre-existing policies are taken in order to combat the threats of the cyberspace. Now, for example, using deterrence modeling by deriving it from the policies governing nuclear weaponry, or maybe taking into consideration the IT Act, laws governing intellectual property rights. So when we're looking at this, we would be doing a detailed analysis of all of these, seeing what would apply to the cyberspace right now, and also simultaneously demarcate the shortfalls of these laws or policies. And in that way, we will be making a sort of a comprehensive policy. The second recommendation that I proposed was also a systematic categorization for efficient operation. So under this, we have understood that there is a constant need to develop dynamic as well as adaptive policies to match the technological development, which our government as well as various other governments across the world are struggling with. So we can use artificial intelligence to decrease the vulnerabilities that are introduced into the cyberspace. Now, even while we're doing that, and it can be used to increase protection, it may also launch an array of threats which can be used by bad actors to enhance their attacks. Now, systematic categorization can prove to be a tool with these attempts, and it can thwart such attempts. Because communications and availability of response mechanisms are the deciding factors of how a threat is responded to. So it is important to strengthen the same, as malicious actors usually bank on the fact that fake alarms will create public alarm. And fake instances can lead to a lot of wastage in the resources. Moving forward, the concept of data exchanges and review strategies. So I will again reiterate that right now, since most of the countries are dealing with this problem, it would be instrumental if there's voluntary data sharing, and this includes accumulating sort of best practices around the world or models which have previously worked, regardless of whether the consequences affected the nation or not. So that ways we would be looking a lot into how to solve the problem regardless of the consequences. And my last recommendation for this was the utilization of adaptive algorithms and quantum computing. Now, under this, adaptive algorithms are seen to be one of the most important strengths of an artificial intelligence, where they're constantly evolving and using adaptive algorithms to solve problems. Now, here, artificial intelligence and machine learning, when we take into consideration, these can be used for locating evidence in order to substantiate the identity of the attacker by recognizing the modus operandi of the attacker. Now, what I mean by this is taking into consideration the large array of data that can be used and finding out if there are any deviations that have been occurring over a period of time. If similar deviations have been occurring at different points of time, that shows a pattern. Using that in order to combat any cyber attacks can be used. And again, a tool in this can be quantum computing, which is seen as basically a tool for advanced predictive analytics. So using predictive analytics in order to see what the threat might evolve into the future, and simultaneously developing technologies to combat that. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and I would just end it by saying that right now, it is impossible for any state to operate with regard to this in isolation. So it's important that there's dialogue about this and there's voluntary information sharing so that we can all come up with plausible solutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ankita. It was really a nice one, by the way. So I will take some questions if the audience asks. And meanwhile, I will ask some questions. So considering that we have last presenters also left, but obviously if you read their papers, so when the papers will be published, members, you will love it. The last presentation is also very interesting, so do not miss that. Before the panel, we have still 20 minutes left. So what we'll do is that with regards to the response, it is requested that Ankita responds in just 2 minutes so that whatever the question comes from me or from the audience, we deal it faster. So we can take 2 to 3 more questions, and then I'll ask 1 or 2 questions at least. That is at least plausible. So my question will be in this aspect. This is I don't know whether it is conclusive or inferential or what. Can it be said that the way that cyberspace and its hard power considerations, because cybersecurity and artificial intelligence typically have emerged from different ironies. Cyberspace has come in the hard power complex because it is related to cyber warfare, although there are certain soft power considerations like phishing, hacking, and all that, which is within soft power. But predominantly, cybersecurity is related to hard power. If you go to the soft power aspects of cyberspace protection issues, then you get into data protection, digital rights, media rights, and so forth. Hacking and phishing are related to hard power in the sense that, yes, they are connected. However, still it is taken into the soft power domain by some researchers. Artificial intelligence did not come from the hard power. If you say Alan Turing, Steve Jobs, and all those, it started from soft power. It started from companies. So artificial intelligence is also a kind of a soft power in geopolitics. In fact, the whole trade war going on between the Americans and the Chinese is about this only. That apart from many other factors, artificial intelligence is also a factor. In fact, and I think if you see the research indices, you'll find that China is trying to gain a great leap out of it, which is actually a very important thing to consider. So considerably, we need to see what innovative approaches can be. And the point about voluntary information sharing was nice. So when we see artificial intelligence's amalgamation utility to actually maintain the cause of cybersecurity in a reasonable way, how would you see it in the lens of soft power? So what's your take on that? Just 2 minutes.
When the nation has the capability to understand and ascertain what is the capacity of the attacker, right? And that's only for the preliminary stage. So if in case a nation does not have a nation cannot per se understand the capacity of the attacker, it becomes very difficult to employ these. So I think, yeah. And there's something in the chat box. I'm not sure if it's for me.
Yeah, so I think there's a question for you. I don't know if Abhivardhan is back or not. So if you could answer this question in just 2 minutes because we are short of time. It's, can you brief over the fact that how adaptive solve these bugs? So just in 2 minutes, if you could.
I'll do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, adaptive algorithms right here, these are not bugs, these are attackers. These are not faults in the system. These are vulnerabilities which are being exploited by certain attackers. So when we say adaptive algorithm, how it would help in solving is that, basically most of these algorithms, as and when there's input, they change and become more adaptive to the problem at hand. Right. Similarly, when we deploy that in the aspect of cybersecurity or against cyber attacks, we see that by adapting, you can ascertain the modus operandi of the various cyber attackers. So, for example, like I said, there's a specific type of attack which is happening over different points. So you can form that correlation, and it becomes easier for the artificial intelligence to adapt that, recognize that. And the next time that happens, the artificial intelligence will be better able to spot it. So I think that is how maybe we can use adaptive algorithms for it.
All across the world has temporarily shut down. And until that, we are following this online method of teaching. So the thing is that even before COVID-19, there was a high growth, and there were a lot of investments in online education. And but since COVID-19, there has been like a significant surge in the usage of technology for learning, whether it is language apps or video conference tools or online education platforms, etc. So the thing is that, the question arises that after COVID-19, after this issue, will we still follow this method of education? Like, is it more beneficial, or will we go back to, revert back to our traditional classroom experience? So one might question that what is the need for this digitalized education? Well, I would say that digitalized education is definitely one way of uplifting the quality of education, because it obviously helps us to improve self-studying, and it offers a flexibility. I mean, a student from India or anywhere else can access online learning, and learn if anywhere they want. So that is there. And also digitalization provides personalized learning, and because every student is different from each other, and we all have our own thing to do, so we need different time and all that. So obviously that's more beneficial that way. So, but the thing is that is the minimum incorporation of technology provided by the institutions enough? The answer is no, because yeah, I mean, online education is obviously very helpful, but I think incorporation of artificial intelligence in education is more beneficial. This can elevate our approach much better, because if you know what a student uh, knows and doesn't know through diagnostic testing, which would basically, give us a personalized curriculum for each student's needs and based on their capabilities and interests. So yeah, that's why I think digitalized education is very much beneficial. And even I'm not saying that we shouldn't go back to the traditional classroom experience of learning, but a hybrid model would be definitely beneficial for students, because as much as the teachers are very much helpful for us, it is just not possible for the lecturer with 100 plus students to give personal attention to the students. So with AI, the thing is that it will help us adaptively learn, and it gives us the personalized learning. It what to say our academic potential, our strength, weakness, everything of a student can be catered to. So the thing is that in some countries AI in education is more prevalent than the others. So obviously China is the leading in that. They have invested billions of money in artificial intelligence, especially and a small portion of that is in education. So they have basically conducted a lot of experiments, and as such Squirrel and Allo7 and Liu Lishmo are one of the most some of the most top AI based startup companies that have been very successful in this country. So they basically believe in this AI assisted learning method. And similarly, even in US, there is Cogni. It's an online education platform which uses AI to teach students. And in UK also, personalized learning is a new trend. AI-based startups now, Baiju, it has definitely helped students. There are so many experiments going on. And Mbibe was also one of the most leading AI-based online platform. It has also partnered with Reliance Jio in 2018. So their idea is to basically provide low-cost devices with high 4G network connectivity, so that even students from rural areas get some kind of connection, and like they can access this online education, and they can cater their academic potential through it. So yeah, that's it. So next my co-author will continue from it.
Yeah. So, good evening, everybody. I'll be continuing the legal aspects of what my co-author talked about. So, to start off with, the question as to if the world will be led by AI is an unanswered and bothering question to all of us. So, AI has created a global evolution in terms of legal education. To add a feather to the cap, due to the current circumstances, we're leaning towards a virtual mode to go about our daily schedules. And companies find ways to develop the technology that will manage laborers' tasks in different industries for better speed and accuracy. So artificial intelligence is being adapted in all imaginable spheres of our life, and law schools and firms see this as an opportunity for students who are fluent in technology and how this can be useful for their clients' services. And this can also be seen as how artificial intelligence is seen as a competency for law students and law firms. And to hint on the influence of the legal sector, artificial intelligence is becoming more proactive around the globe. In China, robots are being more made to work as judges, and some even have specializations in the area of commercial laws and labor related disputes, which are the common disputes all around the world. And technology, along with artificial intelligence, is becoming huge, and it helps in building a constructive path towards bridging the advocate and the consumers or the customers who are seeking legal counsel or legal advice. So, the question of online education being reliable or not is very subjective, and even if the effect of it has raised concerns over the educational quality, the potential of establishing such missions are achieved progressively. So, moving on to the possible improvements of artificial intelligence in the legal field, law firms are under tremendous pressure to minimize cost while providing top tier services to their clients. The scope of artificial intelligence is quite vast in the legal sector, and it is difficult to keep up with the advancement of technology because the law itself must figure out how to adjust to these advancements, such as law boards or smart contracts, etc. So these are a lot of ways in which artificial intelligence can be applied in the legal sector. For example, helping in carrying out activities such as legal research and due diligence, additional insights and shortcuts through analytics, and creative automated process for drafting contracts and petitions. So in India, the scope of artificial intelligence is still recognized and in the early stages. Both privately and also organizations run by the government are reaching and developing new technologies to ease the functioning of law. For example, the Artificial Intelligence Association of India is one such institution working on the development of arts, and law firms use software templates to create filled out documents based on data inputs. So moving on to something that is growing up, which is artificial intelligence as a personalized tutor. One of the many merits of an artificial intelligence is that it can be customized and personalized. It can be customized based on one's learning pace, and it can be preferred. It can be based on one's learning pace, one's preferred learning time, and so on. So the interactive sessions provided by the artificial intelligence digs up the user's interest, and the user will be able to learn so much more than the scope of what he is looking for. So moving on to the examples of artificial examples in day-to-day life, as I had mentioned earlier, due diligence is required for an insightful counseling. One of the main reasons as to why the robot or artificial intelligence Kira system was developed was solely based on due diligence. Artificial intelligence like Brevia, Evelaw, LawGeeks, and Leviton are equipped for playing out a more precise substance analysis of the given information, which is great for novos lawyers. And moving on to something more predominantly used, the Ross intelligence regular language to look and give legitimate data from references to full lawful briefs. And also it helps the customers in the intellectual property areas such as trademark and patenting, etc. Even though artificial intelligence provides to be useful, and understanding the scope of artificial intelligence is within law, it is very crucial. Despite the fact that one of the acknowledged benefit of artificial intelligence is improving efficiency, it might be a hindrance and a distraction too. So another major evolving area where AI is inculcated is international relations and diplomacy. The key question in mind of policymakers is whether artificial intelligence would be able to deliver on its promises instead of being stagnant. In the current day scenario, artificial intelligence is providing reliable assistance in area of diplomatic interests such as crisis management, consular services, negotiations, policy makings, and so on. In artificial intelligence, foreign relations and global security are considered to be present hotbeds. Countries like America and Russia are working on establishing artificial intelligence in the area of foreign policy. The toolbox for artificial intelligence in foreign policy involves analyzing bilateral and multilateral agreements, information gathering, policy making, and public diplomas. So politicians, researchers, and bureaucrats in China are thinking to inculcate artificial intelligence as an assistant in their day-to-day life decision making that can give ideas, suggestions, and recommendations in seconds. And the key.
Sorry to interrupt, but since we have a panel in next 5 minutes, so it would be nice if you can conclude in 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure. Just give me 2. I'm sorry.
Sure.
Yeah. So the key takeaways that we want to establish here is that with the advent of technology-driven economy has brought us along itself with several boons and banes. Obviously, artificial intelligence is a double-edged sword because it helps us to get our work done more efficiently along with time saving. But on the other hand, it can have a huge effect on employment of millions of people. So I just want to introduce something. Me, along with my co-authors and my another co-author, Kapil Naresh is here, and two of our members are in the YouTube live stream. So we are developing on an artificial intelligence based product, and it's called as Jury 8. So this is not only for law students, this will also help teaching law for laymen as well, and we're developing on it. So thank you.
All right, thank you. It was a really informative presentation. Now, since we lack time, we have a panel discussion in next 5 minutes. I will not be presenting today. Unfortunately, other 2 days, it's all right. So the viewers can now join the link for panel discussions, because panel discussion will commence in next 5 minutes. And we can end this track presentations. I thank all of the presenters. It was a very insightful presentation. And if anyone has any questions related to the last presentation, they can write it on the chat box. Okay, I'll be sharing the link for the panel discussion in this chat box itself.